would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
All I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer. The probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it.
As to who is to be believed and to who's not to be believed, you can trust no one if you take this. Where did you get this idea that President Trump trusts me or I trust him? He defends the interests of the United States of America, and I do defend the interests of the Russian Federation. We should be guided by facts. Could you name a single fact that would definitively prove the collusion? This is utter nonsense.
What happened to the server? What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentlemen that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails, gone, just gone. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think it's a disgrace.
Does the Russian government have any compromising material on President Trump or his family?
I called him a competitor, and a good competitor he is. And I think the word competitor is it's a compliment. I think that we will be competing when you talk about the pipeline. I'm not sure necessarily that it's in the best interests of Germany or not, but that was a decision that they made.
I believe that Russia is a democratic state, and I hope you're not denying this right to your own country. You're not denying that United States is a democracy. Do you believe United States is a democracy? And if so, if it is a democratic state, then the final conclusion in this kind of a dispute can only be delivered by a trial. Mr. President, I'll give this ball to you, and now the ball is in your court.
That's very nice. That will go to my son, Barron. We have no question. In fact, Melania, here you go.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. As you see, that was Helsinki in this July. And I just wanted to remind everybody what kind of traitor we have in the White House. Welcome to the show, Jamil
Arzeno.
And
Jeff Williams.
Jeff Williams.
Thank
you. These are co-op neighbors of mine, and I started the show to present one of our basic problems that we're having today. We have a man in the White House that's a racist, and as it's well known, and I think he's diminishing democracy. I mean, you actually saw a display of really, this is a traitor in the White House. I mean, we all know the Russians were involved in our election. You know, I'm leading up to our election coming up at the co-op that we're talking about. So there's corruption wherever we go, especially in the United States government. Give us your take on President Trump. Jamil?
My take on President Trump, my first take on it was to be very angry and upset, as most people were, that we elected someone to an official office, the leader of our nation, who really wasn't qualified for the position. But then after considering who we've been as a nation, the energy that we've put out in the world, and how we've shown up, I feel that he's a necessary evil, if you will.
Ooh.
We have to live with what we create. You know, and so he didn't just come out of nowhere. He came out of somewhere and out of something.
And he's a New Yorker, too.
There you go. Right? So we created the possibility for him to be in the position that he's in, and that's not necessarily a creation of positivity. It could be the creation of the negative energy that we've been putting out as a nation for a very long time.
Okay.
But then now we have to look at this every day and deal with it, you know, and not complain about it, but find a way to look at it and say, this is what we created. Let's dissect it. Let's heal it, and then create something new for ourselves that we can all live with.
All right. Jay?
I personally feel like there's too much focus on Trump himself, and I think nothing happens by itself. So I think between the things that we accept and the things that we support is the driver behind the results that we come up with. And no matter how corrupt the system is, if the people stay on the right path, then they can overcome the obstacles that they are confronted with, whether it's from an individual. One individual shouldn't have that much control. So I think there are a lot of people behind the scenes that are also involved. So I definitely don't think he stands alone. And I think the same way he's putting up.
Well, we know the Russians are behind. We see Putin coming out claiming that America's on its way down. And they're meeting in Paris. And he's under indictment. I mean, this is plain in-your-face racism and treasonous. But we'll see what happens. As you all know, that I'm a resident of Esplanade Gardens, one of the largest co-ops in America, black-owned, right? And we're all co-ops of this. But I have to give you a little introduction of run. I think it's number 3. And this is a little idea of how co-ops came about here in New York City. All right? And I think Graham is coming on the scene. All right? Just give us a roll. Roll in 3.
Is where and how did the Russians get into this? And I think it's a very important question. So I assume that a lot of the people here may have, and if you haven't, I hope you will, read the
I'm sorry. I got my rollings mixed up. We'll be right back at you. This is live from Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Now, what you're watching, this had some music behind it, but this is Harlem in the 80s. I remember I started out in real estate in the 80s, and there were a lot more vacant land than you see here on this particular shot. And this is when Harlem was really a desolate. It was worse. It was just as bad as the Bronx back in those days.
Yes.
And Esplanade Garden was thriving. I mean, in the 80s, we had an oasis in the middle of all this drama. This is actually amazing to look at some of these old shots. Actually, I started in real estate in '84. My girlfriend was a broker, so I started, you know, going around and looking down. Went down to the city and I looked in the public records of buildings. I sold my first building on 110th Street. All right?
Nice.
Matter of fact, before that, I had been driving as a chauffeur. And I was driving James Brown and Al Sharpton around Harlem. And James Brown was talking about how he should have invested all his money into Harlem real estate. And he wouldn't have been in the tax problems that he was having at the time. So at the time, I said, wow, there's such an opportunity here. And Harlem was crack-infested. This was a planned genocide to all, you know, to the black populace of Harlem at the time. So this is our heritage. You guys were a little younger in those days.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
77, so
Yes.
I mean, I really experienced all this. So you can cut it from here. We'll come back. This all had music to it, and it's amazing looking at that stuff. But that's Harlem of old, and now we're here today in a development that's looking for a $90 million loan. We've got elections coming up, and Jamil, you're running for the board.
I am.
And we're both, all of us are residents of Esplanade, the largest owned black co-op in America. And maybe there might be one in Queens, I'm told, by Carl Hicks. And all of you, I don't know why I forgot to bring Carl Hicks' phone number, but everyone that lives in Esplanade, and the sound of my voice, you have to get in touch with Carl Hicks. I'll try and get the numbers sometimes. I have it on my phone. So we'll get the number of Carl Hicks before the end of the show, or during the show. So everybody that lives in Esplanade, if you want to know anything about what's going on, you call
speak to
him.
Carl.
Now, you're a real estate broker. I was a real estate broker for, what, 12 years. When I moved into Esplanade in '92, I had to stop because I started going to church every Sunday, and I sort of found the Lord. I came back
Nice.
to Esplanade, and I changed my life.
Okay.
Well, before, and I was 52, 53 at the time. So I came back to Esplanade 25 years ago. And I love this place, but now it's we're threatened to go into a $120 million debt. Now, what are we going to do about this? Jamil, you're running for the board.
I am. I'm running for the board because I am a newer resident of Harlem's
How long have you been
Esplanade
here?
Garden. 2 years.
Oh, you've only been here 2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
I've only been there 2 years, but my first year I joined the committee
This is what we need.
of my building. I'm in Building 5, and I got on to be the committee chair right away. I saw an Esplanade Gardens that had changed. I remember when I first started working, coming out of college, I worked for Department of Human Resources. I worked with welfare.
Oh,
and my supervisor actually lived in Esplanade Gardens in Building 3. And I remember visiting her and seeing a community of people look like me, thriving
Right.
in this beautiful place, having this kind of property, and being able to, you know, live in a community where everybody was successful, everybody was doing things, moving forward, bringing their lives forward, creating legacy for their families.
And actually owning something.
And owning something, and I knew I wanted that. And she said, you know, if you want to live here, you can live here. You just make it happen. You know, keep doing what you're doing, keep working hard, you can live here. And I did that. And so now I live in Esplanade Gardens, and it's not the Esplanade Gardens I saw when I went to visit her. A lot of the conditions have changed. There's deterioration on the facades of the building. There's deterioration on the interiors of the building, pipe plumbing, elevator systems, the security system, the door response systems. Everything needs updating. It's 50 years old. We just celebrated a 50th anniversary. And so for me, that money that it's being requested, that loan, should go to that kind of capital improvement.
Okay.
Taking care of the terraces that are deteriorating.
So you're for the...
And for the buildings getting fixed for the necessary refinements that will keep it in a habitable condition.
Now, Robert, now you're a real estate
Jeff
broker.
Williams.
Jeff.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey Williams. Jeff Williams. Now, you're a real estate broker. I'm an ex-broker. Now, we know all the cons and all the things that go on and with contractors and all
Absolutely.
the thievery that goes along. We didn't start talking about the thievery and this complex that we're dealing with and what changes are coming along now. She's running for office, so I guess she can't speak on that. But you and I can talk about the corruption. And what about the corruption that's been going on in Esplanade?
A lot of the corruption that we're hearing about, I personally haven't had any facts put in front of me that I can vouch to say that there is necessarily some specific corruption going on. I personally cannot say that, and the reason why I won't say that is because I like to deal with facts. I don't necessarily want to go with rumors. I have heard the rumors. They have definitely presented numerous rumors, you know, from...
Did you hear about the electric bill?
Yes,
of
I heard about the
$850,000?
$850,000 Con Ed bill. Yes,
No,
I heard
no,
about
it
it.
wasn't a Con Ed bill. It was from a third party.
Right, electric
Now,
bill.
you call Carl Hicks and he'll give you the lowdown on all this. The point is that the management was buying electricity from a third party. It wasn't going to, as large as this, our building 5. The electric bill was $225,000 for the quarter, this past quarter. We had a bill due, all right? Now, where do I get all this information?
How did that bill compare to the other buildings, 1, 2, and 3?
I don't know. I just looked up 5.
Okay.
I was able to get 5. I mean, you can. This is a public record. I mean, anybody can go. You're a real estate broker. You should know that.
Absolutely.
Come on, this is public record. We as shareholders should be. All this information is readily available. We're the owners. We hire these other people that are stealing from us. All right, we should be all up on this. This is our money they're stealing.
Well, there's a lot of things that we should be doing as shareholders. What are the things that we should be doing as shareholders that could have prevented us from getting in this situation in the first place? Again, it's back to what I was saying about the president. It's the energy that we've been operating in.
All right. All
Okay?
right.
So one of the first things that we should have been doing is taking our bylaws.
Okay.
And not just getting a bylaw and then getting your shares, but actually taking this and reading it. You know, the joke about us as African Americans is if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book, right?
Absolutely.
I don't find that funny. We should be reading everything that's handed to us. We should know what's going on.
All right,
you
run
know?
number 4, and while we get Graham on. Graham's also a real estate broker, so
Awesome.
run number 4, and we'll be right back at you. This is about co-ops, how they initially started.
Housing cooperatives were created by labor unions in the early 20th century as an affordable alternative to the high cost and often poor quality of private rental housing.
This is the slum. Littered, airless, blocked.
At the time, many working-class New Yorkers lived in crowded tenements without running water or private bathrooms.
The initial organizers, Abraham Kazan and Sidney Hillman and Jesse Herman, they all came out of the socialist movement from Europe. One can compare it to Bernie Sanders, that kind of socialist. So these are the original thinkers and visionaries who wanted to build this kind of cooperative movement as something that would catch on in this nation and resolve some of the needs in our communities.
From the 1920s through the 1970s, labor unions built tens of thousands of cooperative apartments across New York City with the assistance of government programs. Some projects were built on cleared land in the city center. Others were built on empty land at the city's outskirts.
Working families, as they were gaining strength and income and wages would increase, they were not eligible for public housing. They were above income, and yet they could not afford private housing. It's too expensive. So they needed some kind of a intermediate kind of a form. And so they developed this cooperative housing.
Politicians on both sides of the aisle, from Governor Nelson Rockefeller to President John F. Kennedy, hailed these projects as a solution to the age-old problem of affordable housing.
What can a union now do to contribute to the welfare of its own members and to the welfare of the country? And this housing project demonstrates what labor, with good, effective, progressive leadership, and the city, and the state, and private groups, and the federal government, together in cooperation, can do for this city and this country.
The unions were confident that cooperative housing was the way of the future. But
now, you have to realize that this piece we just watched there was 1962. Now, Esplanade Gardens was built in 1968. My wife moved there in 1968, and she's been there 50 years, all right? Yeah. So this whole presentation you just saw was the development of a Harlem co-op, which we own. Mm-hmm. We actually own this, so it behooves us to take care of business. Mm-hmm. And like Jamil said, we got to read the bylaws and study the problems of Esplanade, and don't put our head in the sand and say we don't see something when if you see something, say something.
Right.
Absolutely. All right. Now I see a problem with proxies. Mm-hmm. Now proxies are, it's in the bylaws that you can solicit proxies. Now, I know of people going around collecting proxies from the elderly, people who don't really understand proxies, mm-hmm. and they're collecting them and putting whoever they want in the board on the board. Mm-hmm. And this has been going on for years. I've been hearing about this for the 25 years I've been here. Mm-hmm. Now, they were in cahoots with management. And this management is out the door November 1st. So we have a new dawn coming up. So everybody in Esplanade has to understand that we got something new and great coming up. All these old stuff are going by the wayside, but we have to get the right people on the board. Because this is a 3-year term, and we've got some shenanigans on the board now, but most of it, I've gotten clearance from Carl Hicks. Carl Hicks tells me, now this is the information man, well, I'm going to put the number out. Carl said it was all right for you to call him. He's readily aware of what's happening. He handles 17 other developments. He's giving me all this information. This is public information, all right? Even Graham looked up what the taxes were, or what the bill was on the, that's where I got the bill from the electricity.
No, I didn't give you the electric bill.
What was the taxes?
Taxes.
The taxes.
On your building.
Which was $225,000?
That was due for the quarter.
For the quarter, okay. And it's a public record.
Yeah. Everything relative to the building. Any person living there, anybody living anywhere can look it up.
Right.
All right? It's on ACRIS, it's on the city website, and there are other websites that you can go to pull down that information. The taxes are, well, they would due, I think, on the 15th.
Yeah, you told me 15th.
Right. So they should have been paid by now.
Right.
One good way to go into default with the city is not to pay the taxes. They are up and have been up on their taxes, from what I saw. But as a co-op, understand, is not real property.
Right.
But in your bylaws, you need to know what percentage of the members of the co-op are subletting their apartments. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And normally,
allowed?
No, it is not allowed.
That's not allowed.
It's not allowed.
Normally, some allow for a year, but it's not a money-making venture.
Right.
Okay.
And if it is sublet, it can only be sublet for maybe 10% over the required maintenance fee.
Okay.
Can you sublet to relatives?
We cannot sublet currently.
Period.
At all at Esplanade Gardens. Subletting has happened at Esplanade Gardens. That's a rumor again that I've heard. It's one of the other reasons why people were just in arms about, have the management that we had, because it wasn't being watched, it wasn't being looked at. honestly, the changes that have to happen have to come from the residents and the shareholders currently, just really taking responsibility and knowing what are our rights, and actually showing up to the meetings of their buildings and holding their co-chairs accountable and the chairs accountable to go to the board meetings when we have the open board meetings with the open shareholder board meetings and say, you know, this is what we want as shareholders. We want to have in our bylaws that we can have the right to sublet at 10% or whatever have you, but put these things on the table for us to vote on so that they don't go under the table and things backhandedly start happening and create the kind of corruption that we're fighting now today.
Do they have quarterly board meetings? I mean, for the people in the development?
Yes, we have monthly meetings.
You have monthly. How often do you get a financial report?
The financial reports, I think we get semi-annually.
Not quarterly?
It should be quarterly.
It should be quarterly.
Should be quarterly.
Because that's how there's no transparency there.
I think part of the problem, like Jamila's saying, is you have to have the shareholders involved. And I think what was happening in the past, because the shareholders they are having the meetings, the shareholders aren't participating in the meetings.
Right.
Because
they don't understand.
Right. But so
what's going on?
the thing that going forward, one of the things that I'm proposing to Jamila, and if she's running, and you know, that I'm trying to do is get the shareholders at the meetings, because a lot of it has to do with you're having a lot of meetings where people are just coming to meetings and they're arguing with each other.
Right.
That's that's like a whole hour, 2 hours wasted.
Right.
So people time is valuable. So if they aren't feeling like they're walking away from the meeting and it was productive, then a lot of people walk away, which is exactly what they want to happen, because now if everybody walks away and the shareholders are blind to all of these decisions, and then what happens is you have a drastic decision that may be made, you know, with the board members
like
and
who they should vote for.
Things like that,
Let
and
me
then the
explain
management.
how I met Jamila, or how I've come to support her. We went to a building meeting. You were chairing the board. Now, I had heard all the rumors for the last 25 years of prestige and management and picking people for the board and all the fights and all the stuff that is going on there. And they're in deep trouble now, and because this one incident with an $850,000 bill, they came up with electricity from a third party. The management wasn't going to Con Ed to get the electricity. They're going to a third party, which they were getting kickbacks from, and boosting up the bill and not paying the bill. So suddenly we got an $850,000 bill, and we had to go to reserves and to take it out. And I'd heard throughout the time that we were broke. That somebody told me we're losing $2–3 million a year. I said, well, how is that possible? I said, who knows the rent roll? As a broker, I said, what's the, not the rent roll, but the maintenance roll
for the shares.
So nobody knew. Nobody on the board knew. Nobody would give me this information. You couldn't go to anybody to find out. I called Carl Hicks, and I got the rent roll, as we call it, or the maintenance roll, and I found out how much we had in reserves. I found out we weren't broke, and that we were making money.
See, even that third-party contract,
right?
That has to be approved, and people should know if they're not utilizing Con Ed, and Con Ed was overcharging churches and other institutions for a number of years. They got caught.
Okay.
So if they're not going to use the public utility, everybody should be appraised. It should be presented as a possibility. All right. Any major contract, any big deal, should be. You should have at least 3 contractors coming in presenting bids for any major engagement with the development. And the people should be aware of it. They should be briefed in a meeting by the bidders before any decisions are made.
Well, this bid on the contract coming up is going to be a closed bid.
That's right.
I asked Lepper, the lawyer on the case, why is it, there's going to be inside jobs there. I mean, everybody as a broker knows the con game that goes on in this bidding process. Why isn't the co-opers know what's going on? But it's all run by the board. So the board has to have people on that know something about all this. And I don't think we have but a few people that are privy to what's going on.
So here's part of the issue for me is if the shareholders vote the board in, and then the board is working interchangeably with management, and the board is representing the shareholders, where's the checks and balance between the shareholders, the board, and HPD? Because the thing is,
well, HPD is supposed to be the check and balance.
Right.
They're supposed to be the police.
But the thing is, right?
But we as shareholders should be able to talk to HPD and find out what's going on ourselves.
But then that comes back. That comes back to those bylaws. Right. That comes back. That has to start at the bylaws because in order for the shareholders to come to a meeting and ask an effective question or a question that's meaningful, they have to know the laws, the rules, and what they can and cannot do.
You as a broker know what exactly to ask.
I know,
I know what to ask.
But we need to know
so
that
I
in
should
mass.
be on the board. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Well,
experienced people should be on the board.
Experienced people should be on the board. Experienced people should be running for the board.
Right.
But at the same time, each shareholder should take on the responsibility of knowing what their bylaws are.
Right.
So
That's
we
my
all
point.
have to be accountable for it.
Not just the board, not just HPD. We have to start with our own accountability, and accountability is going to start with the shareholders because how can you walk in a room and vote for people? And what has happened in the past, people aren't voting for people who have the experience, the knowledge to run the board and run the corporation. They're voting for, I know this person, he's my friend. This person, I see them all the time. I don't really know them, but it's a familiar face. So they're voting for familiar faces. The thing is, with any politics, you have to do your homework because you may be my friend, I may like you as a person, but I know that you're not qualified. One other issue I have, how do you pick, once the board is picked, amongst the board, they decide who's going to be the treasurer, who's going to be the president. Are you qualified to be the treasurer? And what experience? The same way with a job, here's a resume. Do your resume show that you have the qualifications? Have you ever dealt with a budget this large?
That's why I have Jamil here today. I mean, you and I are both supporters of her, and we would think that you're qualified enough to be a responsible board member. You've come up with a number of ideas, and anybody watching that's from Building 5 know Jamila. And what did I say? Did I pronounce it right?
Jamil.
Jamil.
Yes, it's
I say
okay.
Jamila?
It happens
Jamil.
all the time.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
But
it's fine.
But I know you. The short time I've known you, you've given me a lot of guidance. That's where I got to know Carl Hicks. I said, what kind of questions? Since you're not going to be there, I mean, what kind of questions should I be asking Moray? And then we had this special meeting, one of the few meetings I've ever attended at Esplanade, the 25 years I've been there, show you how neglectful I've been. So I got up and I said, who's the liaison for between Esplanade management and HPD? So she gave me this guy's number, Carl Hicks. And I'll get the number up for everybody to call. So I called Carl Hicks, and Carl Hicks was a dream come true, because it was like talking to another broker. I mean, I got the lowdown on everything. I got his opinion of the board today. He said he's been in his position since 2006. He said this is the best board he's seen since he's been there. He said there were 2 bad apples in there, and you just got to watch out for these 2 bad apples. I won't name names, but you guys all know who it is. But all we need is a few good people in there to help Moray do the job that she's doing. She's doing an excellent job. Anybody I've spoken to, she is the best thing that's happened to Esplanade in a while. And I went in there with a bad opinion of Moray. And I've been listening to everybody else which, oh, you got to watch this going on. I'm hearing all this stuff. And then I walked up to her and I said, well, who's running who's negotiating the mortgage? I'm concerned about this $90 million mortgage. And who's negotiating I'm saying the rate's got to be off the chart. I'm looking at 3%. I mean, what? And I'm saying, oh, who's doing all this? So she gave me the lawyer's number. She was transparent. She gave me Carl Hicks' number. So I'm able to take all this stuff as a shareholder, which is my responsibility to find out what's going on my property, which I am part of.
Did they bring 3 banks in to come up with this determination for the mortgage?
There you go.
That's
so
what I was going to ask. Right.
I need you to put that question, see?
And those are the questions that
we should be asking Sunday.
Right, but the problem is this. I may ask that question, you may ask that question, she may ask that question.
We might not get an answer.
We're only 3 people. What I want is everybody do their homework and understand, like what he was saying, even if you bring a contractor to do plumbing, we need 3 bids, we need 3 contractors, and where are these 3 contractors coming from? Because what happens in real estate as a broker, as y'all both know, if you have the bank, the agent, and we all on the same team.
You can't do one-stop shopping.
Exactly. So you have to have that is, you may not know what plumbing costs. I may not know what plumbing costs. There's certain areas that you don't have that expertise in, but when you bring 3 contractors in, and it's not always who has the lowest bid. What happens with when you bring 3 experts in, what happens is this one may give you a 5-year warranty, because that's the other thing. If the elevator is constantly breaking, where's the warranty at? There's no need for a warranty, and we don't want a warranty if I'm getting kickbacks every time the elevator breaks.
Has the contractor come in and did your radiators?
Yes.
Yes.
Has he done that?
Yes.
You know we're having problems with the radiators?
Yes.
Yes.
You know they're flooding their apartments?
I've heard
because Prestige went and got a cheap contractor. All right? They weren't qualified to do this job. Now this is the problem that we've been having in Esplanade. So I'm afraid that the same thing may happen when we get this $90 million and how are we spending it?
Did the board
Who approved this? But who approved it from the board for this contractor to be hired?
Somebody getting a kickback.
But this is the point.
But
we have to follow a paper trail.
By management.
But somebody in the board also saw that.
Well, management was controlled. I mean, the board was controlled by management.
Well, there's a paper trail then that has to be followed.
We know who did it.
You need, if I may, with regard to your heating and your radiators, there are different systems of heating. And you can't shut off your radiator valve because it's warm in your apartment, because you can affect the person above you and below you. Steam heat is very specific. Another thing, because they will have a stop on the valve so you can't shut it down completely. So it should have that stop on there. In terms of the contracts, like you mentioned, a company coming in to point the buildings. We
haven't got we're getting 3 bids. 3 contractors are bidding to do the points on the building.
Okay, very good.
That's coming up next month.
But you may need to do a forensic audit.
Okay.
They mentioned that,
a
but
forensic
it wasn't actually
audit,
done.
Especially if you're coming in to, say you get elected.
Right.
And you come in. Whatever happens after you get there, they're going to blame you on it.
Of course.
You need to have a forensic audit to know what is and is not, although it may look right. And you have 2 accounting companies do it, not just 1.
So they can check and balance each
That's
other.
your check and balance. And you don't let A know that B is doing anything.
Well, my understanding is that there's an investigation going on now with Prestige Management.
That's right.
But the confusion, I think that, well, part of the confusion I think that we as shareholders at Esplanade Gardens are having is that not only is there an investigation going on, but Prestige sent a letter to each shareholder stating that they quit basically being our management. And now they're in court with a lawyer fighting to regain the opportunity to be our management. So
that's why you need the forensic audit. Because if they've been stealing or engaging in anything illegal, that automatically breaks the contract.
Yeah,
right. You have grounds for
grounds for dismissal.
Now, if they sent a letter and said they quit, if they said they quit,
did send a letter and said
then they can't come back.
Well,
they're fighting
I brought up the point of the $850,000 on an electric bill. Now that's bogus right there. No fool would go to a third party to get a more expensive electric bill. They don't deserve the contract. I mean, if they're going to a third party for electricity and not going to Con Ed, either Con Ed has cheated people in the past. They're really cheating us.
My other issue is, who's overseeing the transformation from the old management company to the new one? Because now our books, you know, recorded from the time that this management ended, so we not commingling into the new management, and now the old management is saying, no, we didn't do that.
This question for you to ask at the board meeting Sunday.
Because not only that, the board should have a total account of all our bank accounts from the time this November 1st ends till it starts with the new management company, and let's move forward from that point.
Right.
But I still go back to my initial problem where I already mentioned this in Building 4's meeting where I live at, that I want every member, every shareholder that came to that meeting, their homework was to go home or go to the office and find their bylaws and read it, because what I want is I don't want people to sit in a crowded room and not understand the terminology and what the people who are speaking and the people who already have the knowledge is speaking about, because unless they read the bylaws and understand when they're at a meeting, and then they wouldn't, I mean, one of the things that disturbed me the most is when I have all these shareholders walking around saying, they just fired the management company, they didn't tell us, they didn't tell us.
Yeah.
My thing is, right at that point, if you read the bylaws, you should know what the process is and what the procedures are in order to get rid of your management company. And like you said, if you breached your contract because you're doing something that's unethical, that cuts it immediately, and they have to understand the processes. And they also don't say that the security is not doing their job. My question when I hear that is, what is their job? When you tell me management is stealing money, they not doing this, they not doing that, my second question is, you elected a board. Are you holding your board accountable so they can hold the next level accountable, and then the next level becomes accountable? Because until you break all of those accountability levels and transparency, you will always have a corruption situation.
Management has these committees are manipulating the proxies to put on who management has been clearing who they think qualifies to get on the board. This is what's been happening in the 25 years I've been there.
Okay, but at the end of the day, Mr. Gilchrist, with all due respect, regardless of what management has done, what have the shareholders been doing besides sitting by and allowing it to happen?
Exactly.
When are you going to say enough is enough? Well, then get somebody to tell you what's
That's
better.
my point.
Ask
Going
for
forward,
people to
they have to know
represent
better.
you, that can show you, that can teach you, that can
that's
guide
why
you,
I'm
and
voting
say,
for you.
let's sit down with this paper.
You gave me,
let's go through it.
You gave me the insight to ask the questions that I appreciate that you led me to. So I got to Carl Hicks, and I found out Carl Hicks' number is 863-7512. Write this down, Bev.
Area code?
Area code 212-863-7512. Without my glasses on.
Like that.
I can see.
Yes. I want to apologize to the shareholders of Esplanade Gardens because I could not make it out on the candidates' night to meet people so they could get to know who I was and why I was running for this board. But at that day, I was put into a new role for my livelihood, for my career, which is a role that was not available ever before in the company that I work for. And the first time that they created this role, they gave this role to a woman and a woman of color. So there was no way I was going to miss the first day of me being there in that place, because I represent not only myself, but everyone who looks like me that's going to come behind me. So I had a responsibility to be there, and I requested of you gratefully that you showed up for me and read my letter to the shareholders of why I couldn't be there and how I felt about Esplanade Gardens as a shareholder, what I wanted to see in my community, and they didn't allow you to do that, although it clearly stated, or did not state, that I could not send a proxy to do that for me.
The chair said that we should have come to her first.
It didn't state anywhere that I couldn't do that.
Well,
so
she said the reason why she wouldn't allow it because we didn't come to her first and say, ask permission.
And I respect that.
Okay.
I respect that. But if it didn't say I couldn't do it, I didn't know that I needed to do that.
Okay.
What I did know was that I owed it to the people of Esplanade Gardens, me running as a candidate, to have somebody show up for me and say what it is I wanted to have expressed and conveyed you know, that day. So I apologize for not being able to be there. But what I do want to ask of every tenant and every shareholder of Esplanade Gardens is to please take responsibility the way I'm taking responsibility and learning what my bylaws are, learning what my rights are, so that I can hold the people accountable that I put on the board or vote for to get on the board or ask to represent me in any room as to where it is I'm going to be living and the roof over my head, what happens to that. You know, I want accountability with the people who have the right to say, and I vote for, that have a right to say yes or no to a contract. You know, so, but I can't hold them accountable if I'm not running up to a meeting or going to a meeting or making myself available to hear what's being said or making myself accountable to read what's in this document and know or ask somebody to explain to me, what does this mean? So I can know my rights as a shareholder.
But you promise, as any government official, you know, you promise us as shareholders that you'll be transparent and that we can come to you with any, that's why I'm voting for you, so I can come and give any little complaint I have, or I can come to you with my complaints. I mean, you're right in the same building, so.
Well, here's the thing, Mr. Gilchrist. It's great that we all have an opinion and we can voice our complaints.
Right.
But what's better is that when we do have a complaint, that we come with a solution to the complaint, that we're well informed about what it is we're complaining about, so that when we come with the complaint, we have a perspective to begin from. I'm complaining about this thing because I know that our rights are X, Y, and Z. I know that this is available to us. How can we get that, as opposed to just saying, I'm not happy with this?
Well, how do we solve the problem with the proxies? Now, we know in the past these proxies have been manipulated by the election committee, and people have been chosen, not voted for. These proxies have been manipulated, and people have been chosen by management and various committees.
That's probably something that we should present as shareholders to the board, that we want change, that we'd like to see change, and a board member, you know, requests of the board members that we try to get that changed, that we have a different system where there's more accountability with the proxies that are handwritten or sent in by mail.
Or picked up or solicited.
Right now, like, one of the things that really amazes me, we complain about these things, we complain about the elevators, we complain about the heating system, but we want to continue to do more of the same, which by virtue, that by definition, that's insanity. You know, expecting a new result but doing more of the same. So if we can't get that result with who we've been with, regardless of the length of time that we've been involved with them, it's time to look at something new, or time for them to show us something new, so that we can move forward in a positive direction. I mean, we have committees for so many different things that really, for me, don't make a bigger quality of difference in our lives. And why don't we have a committee to find out who 60% of our shareholders are seniors, some of who are having dementia, some of who are having Alzheimer's, many of whom are having Meals on Wheels delivered to them now. Where's the committee to make sure that their meals are actually getting delivered? Where's the committee to make sure that tenants are not, or sorry, shareholders are not going wandering in the hallways, out, you know, in the vestibule or out of their apartments, leaving their doors unlocked because now they have Alzheimer's and they don't have another family member living with them? Where are those committees? That's what's upsetting to me, you know, but we want to squabble about petty little things that really don't change our situation. They don't change that we're in debt. They don't change that our terraces are falling apart. They don't change that we have one elevator working at a time. None of that is changing it. You know, so let's create some committees that actually create action that help us have a better quality of life. That's what I'm for. You know, let's be transparent about what we do learn and what we know that are in these bylaws, and share this with our neighbors who can't read it or who don't understand it. Let's get them up to date on it so that we can actually stand together and say, this is what we want to change, and this is why we want it.
Jeff, that should be our committee.
Yes.
All right. And we got to start a committee. She suggested it.
I totally agree. I mean, especially in the sense of if there's an issue with the proxies and how they're being handled. One of the solutions, like she said, if there is somebody who's senior who can't get out, who can't, you know, don't really understand how it works, where is that person that knocks on their door or have a meeting or come see them and said, you know, on this particular day and time, or during this period of time, we're going to come and explain to you that these are the people who are running, and because each vote must count. So if each vote must count, then it must be a way that we do it properly, and that would be to educate them.
I think
so
there is somebody going around collecting proxies and not doing the right thing.
They might be collecting them, but they're not telling
doing
them
the right thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Because
That's
now it's here, fill this out and check this box.
If it was an assigned position that only this person can collect proxy from that building or this building or the next building, then you'd have accountability.
Well, you're the building captain. So you put it out there, At least in Building 5, we have it right.
But this is something that has to be put into
the bylaws.
By the bylaws.
Ah, right.
You know.
Right.
Now you do have a reserve, right?
Yes. There is a reserve, yes.
Okay. And there is a mortgage on the property right now.
Three of them. 28 balloon, 17, and 5.
When is the balloon due?
16, 17 years. That's a no interest.
Yeah, and then you're going to have a balloon payment on the end. What I'm saying is...
We have enough in reserve, and we've got a separate account for the co-ops, the apartments that have been sold for the last 4 or 5 years. There's an account there that has some monies in it, and we're doing great. I can see that Kitty that we're selling new apartments with the rates that getting things at market rate. All we need to do is start getting market rate for some of these apartments, and we will have some good money.
I've said that in the meetings, but a lot of the shareholders are opposed to us having an increase of 20% or more. My response to that is, would you prefer to have an increase of 30% if the building gets taken over by someone who's not Mitchell-Lama, where we can't afford? Well, if the city sells it, if the city sells the property.
Maybe I don't think the city should have the mortgage.
See, we had this issue in Brooklyn at Starrett City. That's the largest Mitchell-Lama development in the country. And they were looking to go full market. And if you don't have the people to protect you and work with you, and if they see that things are not being run right,
they will come.
You're going to be gone.
They're going to swoop in.
That's what's happening now.
You're going to be gone.
That's exactly what's happening now. We shouldn't have to borrow $90 million.
That is insane.
I don't think we have to borrow that kind of. There's no building inspectors saying that these buildings are about.
What are they going to do with $90 million?
Well, we are in violation for I think it's 5 years now of having those terraces repaired. Now, I happen to have a friend who works in the buildings department, and we have been receiving fines for those terraces because they have not been repaired, and they are dangerous.
Now, here's one thing
so
they
that's
can
something
do.
that does have to happen.
That's why they put those brackets.
Those strappings, yes.
Okay. What they can do, they can negotiate those numbers down.
Okay.
Even water bills and things of that nature can be negotiated down. The city will do that. You have to get a company. Again, you got to get your bids. And then tell them, all right, we're going to start on this. We'd like to cut a deal, blah, blah, blah. They'll cut it by 2/3. We have a gentleman had an issue with his property this year in Brooklyn. He owed $76,000 in back fees. Had it cut to $6,000. And that's a 6-unit building. They'll work with you and cut it down.
Right.
They need to see you're doing what needs to be done. You got to get proper people to come in, get your bids, work everything out, and just get it done. The violations, the repeated violations are always going to hurt you. Because you don't want the city to think it's not being run, and then they put you into a program.
Well, that's why they're lending us the money.
Who's lending the money?
The city.
The city's giving you all a $90 million loan?
That's what I thought. Or the bank.
Yeah.
The bank.
I was told that the city has to sell bonds to cover this $90 million.
What are they going to do with the $90 million?
She just gave you a list. I
don't know that
heard
that's what's on the
estimates of
list.
doing the point system outside each building as being $10 million. And I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard of. 10 million?
Pointing just for $10 million for
that
pointing a building?
alone. I mean, that's crazy. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Do they have at least three bids for that
Well, we
project?
gotta find out.
Right.
But the board has to listen to all this, and hopefully we can get you on the board. So maybe we can get some feedback on what's happening.
Right.
But you always call Carl Hicks. Did I give you that number?
The board has
Give it
to
again.
the board has to make the right decisions, and
Right.
the board has to do their homework. The board has to enforce the 3 bids. When those 3 bids come in, the board has to sit down, meet again,
The lawyer, too,
Right.
has to be.
and go over these numbers to make sure that, like you're saying, is this number real? Is this number practical? And is there anybody that lives in
And a
Esplanade that's
closed
a
bid, what
contractor?
happens during a closed bid?
Yeah.
You know there's a backdoor thing, and this kind of money, Lord knows how much of it is taken from us.
A $90 million loan plus your mortgage?
Yeah, it goes up to 120.
You
We've
better
been
have
hot
real
forever.
good books to
We're
show.
going in the hot forever.
Right, you can't do that.
32 years.
You can't do
Right.
that.
I mean, that's what I'm worried about. I think we should sit
Because you have the
back.
balloon mortgage sitting out there that's going to hit you in the face.
Well, I think we can cover that with the right kind of reserve, or refinance it.
Yeah,
at a lower
refinance
You
cost.
can't-
before the
You
balloon.
can't
You can't
refinance
keep
it.
But now you put
refinancing
money
a
on top of
property.
money.
Money.
Right.
You're going in the hole. You can't keep doing that.
What is the intention to go in the hole?
That's what I'm saying.
That's
That's
And
the
now
scary
the-
part.
now
That's what
the-
this 90
You
million is
have
doing.
no equity. When
That's
you have
exactly
no
what the
equity,
90 million is
you're out.
doing.
You're
We're
upside down
hocking
like
our
a
homes.
upside down property.
We're putting put our homes on hot.
Well, I think that part of the solution would be to raise the maintenance, you know, a certain percentage. But another part of that to create a sense of security for the shareholders that are there now is to change the rules of succession, to allow people to have family members who can continue the legacy of what was started, and then also contribute financially to the increase.
Do you know-
I think that would
These
help a
are-
lot of the families who
Wanna-
want to stay, you know,
Well,
and
I
don't
want
want
you
our
on this
cooperative.
board.
One of
Yeah.
the
to be taken over.
catch-22s to that secession.
Jamil,
is a problem.
Arzena. Arzena?
You need to go market rate.
Carl
One of the
Carl
catches
Hicks
to
should be
the
on
Well,
the
not
board.
market.
one of the catches to the secession is for someone who's senior, if
Yes.
their kids are older, they are working, now they put them on the
On the lease,
affidavit or the
on
lease, right?
on the deed.
Then what happens is the rent goes up, right? And what's happening, a lot of their kids, as they get older, they move out. So they're
Yeah.
the only person who are actually living in the apartment. So they really technically can't put them on because they don't live there.
Okay.
So it's like this catch-22. And then if they don't live there, either the kid
All right,
is going to have to say
thank
they
you for
live there,
coming.
put the money on, and
The God in
creates a
me
whole
loves
issue.
the God in
Family
you.
member that can come
And
on
stay
down.
tuned for more. And remember, Jamil is running for the board. And vote.
And I'd
Send in your
love to have
proxy.
your vote. Be my
Power
honor.
to the
Thank
people.
you.
God bless. The God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah.
We got another minute for the Bronx.
Awesome.
I had a question for you and I lost it.
So
Oh,
It'll come
Jamil,
back.
what percentage, how many people are in arrears in their payments?
that's the other question.
That's
we
What's
something.
got
that
people
total?
on the board in the arrears. And they
You
were put
cannot
off
serve
the
on the
board.
board if you're in
Well, they were
arrears.
put off
They
the
were put
board.
off the
That's
board.
right.
And then
So-
again, how many people
See,
are in
management was
arrears?
running the board.
And
That's how they got on.
Are
Right.
those people being dealt with?
Right.
Because you
But
can't have
all this
people
is going to change.
not paying.
That's
All
part
this is
of
gonna
the
change.
request for the transparency.
This
and
new
things of that
management
nature.
has been highly recommended. I understand this, the president doing something, this Carl Hicks told me he's doing things that he's never seen any other manager of a management company do. He's refusing to sign certain things that the board want him to do that he thinks is shaky. Okay? And he refused to do it. Power to the people. God bless. And when Carl Hicks told me, I said, whoa. I said,